Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We're trying to do something we've not done before. We're coming to you live on Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube all at the same time, assuming that all of the technology is working, and I think that it is. The first thing that I want to do is thank you for being here and remind you that I deliberately made this a voluntary meeting. Absolutely anybody in our community is welcome to be here, and I have nothing else scheduled for the afternoon. So I have as much time as you do. And your level of curiosity and your commitment of time will determine how long we're here today, because we're not going to leave any of your questions unanswered. I will say, just to get us started, that as I finish my second year in just a month, it's been unseasonably warm, the winters that I've been here, so I've been told. And I may not have had West Virginia cold, but it is properly Mississippi hot in West Virginia right now. So I do know a little bit about the West Virginia weather, more than I knew before. It's been no secret to any of you, I think, the greatest honor of my life to be your president, and I'm very excited to get to continue in that role moving forward. 2 years have passed almost like I went to sleep on a Tuesday night and woke up on a Wednesday morning, and we've accomplished a great deal together. We've overcome some things together, and today we're here for an important reason. We're here to talk about our present, and more than that, we're here to talk about our future. It was your future before I got here, but now I think, and I hope you will agree, that I've shown a sufficient investment that it's our future moving forward. And I want to talk about that with you today. I want to share some things that I think are probably on your mind, and then we'll take comments and questions from all of you. You know by now that I believe in truth in advertising, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you I made a lot of notes. So I make no promise that I'm going to be brief, but I will make a promise that I will be thorough. And whenever I finish and have anticipated all of the questions that I can, then all of the vice presidents and I will answer any question. You can ask a question of any one of us or all of us, and then you can share your ideas as well about moving forward in the short term as we're in the pandemic phase, and in the long term as we hope that at some point in time we will come out of that phase. So I'm going to look down at some notes I made on my phone, which is a bad idea. First time I ever did it, and you all know I'm not very technological. I'd have done much better if I'd have written them out by hand, but it's what I've got to work with. So here we go. The first thing I want to talk to you about is enrollment, and there's some good news to share there. We're in our second week of summer school, and we're up 24% in new students and 15% overall in summer enrollment. We expect that we may lose some of those students due to non-payment or other reasons, but we will be significantly up over where we were summer last year. Folks, in the middle of a pandemic, that's quite an accomplishment. And it's one that I don't take credit for. It's one that I give all of you the credit for. This is as good a time as any for me to start saying what I'll probably say several times, which is thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for going above and beyond. If you're a student, for dealing with all the things that you have to deal with every day and layering the transition to online instruction on top of that. If you're a faculty member, a staff member, someone from the Board of Governors, the administration, an alum, a community member, everybody has really risen up and come together to serve our students and our colleagues the best that we can. And I thank you for that. More good news related to enrollment is if you take a comparison of today compared to this same day last year in the last enrollment cycle, we're up 10% in new students for fall. as well. I do not assume that summer is an absolute predictor of fall enrollment. I sure wish it was. But it's the best, really, and only predictor that we have. So it does seem that students or potential new students who might be losing a job for whatever reason, needing to be retrained, those who want to stay closer to home for their education and closer to family, maybe making the smart choice of West Virginia University Parkersburg. I want to ask you to do something for me, though. And you have always risen up when I've asked you to do things before. Never has it been more important for every one of us to be a recruiter and a retainer than it is now. We seem to be doing a good job in attracting new students, but there are so many more students out there that we can attract. And most of our students register in June and July and the first part of August. So we have that much time ahead of us to fill the seats that need to be filled with new students. Also, there are several hundred students who are still eligible to return who have not yet registered for fall. And they're the ones that I especially want to ask you to help me retain. You know, when I was a student, nothing would have spoken to me about coming back to college in the fall in an uncertain time as much as an email or a telephone call from a faculty or a staff member that I admired. That would have been a great deal more to me than a letter from a president, although this president will be sending out letters and other things to all of the people. I want to ask every one of you, please, to reach out to the students that you know and who have not yet registered and ask them to go ahead and complete that registration now so that we'll know. Students, I want to ask you to do the same. The only thing that would have mattered to me more than a faculty or staff member reaching out to me is if one of my friends reached out and said, you know, let me tell you the great news about West Virginia University Parkersburg. Nothing more than a satisfied client is better for spreading the message. So I want to ask all of you to help me be recruiters and retainers for the fall. And I'm going to give you a tool to do that with today. I'm going to announce today that there will be no tuition increase at WVU Parkersburg for the coming academic year, not for returning students and not for new students. We appreciate that our Board of Governors allowed us to make a 5% tuition increase if we needed to, but we have chosen not to do that. We feel that during this pandemic, it's hard enough for students already without us doing anything to make it harder still for them. So we are making the conscious decision, have made it, that we're not going to increase tuition in any way. That means that we're in the lower tier among what community colleges in West Virginia cost. It means that you can save $30,000 if you're a student by doing your first 2 years with us and transferring. And it means if you want to stay and finish your bachelor's degree, you can get a bachelor's degree that has just as high a quality, but the lowest price tag in the state of West Virginia if you stay with us. Also, we're going to continue our policy of no out-of-state tuition fees for those in Ohio who want to come across the bridge. So students, hopefully that's good news for you. Faculty and staff, hopefully that gives something for you to use as a tool to help us be recruiters and retainers. We do believe that there is something to be said, though we wish all of our sister institutions in West Virginia and Ohio nothing but the best for students choosing to be close to their family and close to their loved ones during this moment in history. And we believe that this will have a positive impact on enrollment in the fall. So overall, I would say the outlook on enrollment is cautiously optimistic. And in a little while, Dr. Smith will answer any more specific questions that you have about that. I want to give you an update on the COVID-19 pandemic and what we've been doing and what we're soon going to be doing related to that. We have distributed $850,000 in CARES stimulus money to all of the students at West Virginia University Parkersburg who were ruled eligible by the federal government for receiving those funds. Had we had our way as an executive team, every student enrolled at WVU Parkersburg would have gotten a grant. But thankful as we are to have that money, it came with lots of stipulations on how it could and could not be spent. And a great many students were ruled ineligible. I want everybody to know they weren't ruled ineligible at WVU Parkersburg. They were ruled ineligible by the federal guidance that we received. But we were delighted to be able to provide one-time awards to quite a lot of our students, all of the ones who were eligible, primarily to help them make the transfer to online instruction and meet whatever technological needs they had, but also to meet some other needs. I also want you to know that we have been allocated approximately $900,000 in institutional stimulus money as part of the CARES Act as well. We have not made many decisions yet about how that money is going to be spent. We will make judicious decisions about that as we go forward. I want to tell you, however, that it has lots of strings attached to what we can and can't do as well. So I want to invite you to think creatively, as we're all doing, and make suggestions about things that you need to be able to do a better job for our students and your colleagues. And if it's within the realm of what's acceptable, we'll try to use those funds for that purpose. I will tell you, I wish I could give everybody a big raise or a one-time bonus out of that money, but that's one of the things that is strictly prohibited. But we're going to make the best use of that money that we can for the college. Now I want to try to answer really by telling you that I'm not going to be able to answer the million-dollar question. The million-dollar question is, when are our facilities going to reopen? The university's never closed, but when are our facilities going to reopen, and when will we be back together again? This is a lose-lose proposition for a president, and I'll be honest with you about that. Some people think that I am moving much too slowly. Some people are afraid that I'm going to move much too quickly, and maybe there's a small core group of folks in the middle who think that I'm getting it just right. But the bottom line is we're following federal and state guidance very carefully and closely about that. We're following state guidance from the governor's office most closely of all, and that guidance has been a lot more slow in coming than we expected it to be. Frankly, I would have expected that I would have told you by now that we were all going to reopen our campuses on June the 1st. That's not going to happen. And I cannot tell you exactly when. Setting politics aside, and I hope that you'll allow me to do that, I am very pleased with the fact that the governor is moving slowly in allowing us to continue to work remotely as long as we can. There will come a moment when we come back together face to face, but every day that we manage our social distancing and are able to do our jobs remotely is a day that we don't risk exposing someone that we love in our community to the virus. And so all I can tell you is that we're going to try to give you at least a week's advance notice. We will give you more notice than that if we can about when that day is going to happen. I assume that it will likely be sometime in June or July, though I cannot say that for sure. I do realize that we need to get back as quick as we safely can because there are things that we need to do to get ready for students to come back in the fall. But, you know, I'll tell you this about myself, and I don't think it will surprise you. Just like folks have called me Dr. Mississippi related to my concern about snow days and that we've had practically no snow since I have been here. I said I would always err on the side of caution where that was concerned. I'd rather for everybody to have a half day off or a day off than for one mother or father who lives on a dirt road out in Wirt or Rowan County to have to call me and tell me that I was the reason that their child lost their life trying to come to school on a bad road. So you saw me behave cautiously about that, and it probably won't surprise you to hear that I'm behaving fairly cautiously and will continue to do so about that as well. So again, if you think I'm moving too slowly, at least you're getting truth in advertising, and I'm telling that I'm going to be consistent and that I'm going to follow the state and federal guidance that I'm given, but I'm going to be cautious in the process of doing that. When we do come back together face to face, I will pay special attention to those who are most vulnerable medically among us, who may have a pre-existing condition of some kind that puts them at higher risk than others. We will also have additional mental health services in place for those who are really very frightened and appropriately so. No shame about that in coming back into a face-to-face setting. So we'll try to do that the best that we can, but I can't tell you when it's going to happen. I can tell you that next week and in the coming weeks, we will be allowing a little bit more access to our campuses than we've allowed in the past. We do have some things that we have to do before everybody comes back and before students come back in the fall. So we will begin allowing people who have essential functions to have more access to campus, evaluating that on a case-by-case basis. But it'll be limited. In that regard. I want to also tell you that summer school is going well in a fully online format. We are going to allow our welding students and a couple of specialized science labs and to a small degree, some of our nursing and surg tech students who have practicums to be able to have some access during summer school, but in a very socially distanced way. And protocols have been put into place to make that as safe as possible. Everything that can be done online in summer is being done online, but frankly, there are a few programs who just couldn't complete welding primary among them in the spring and wouldn't be able to do anything in the summer unless we let them back on campus. So we're going to do that in a very careful way so that incompletes from spring can be removed and people can finish what they need to finish in summer. We are planning for face-to-face instruction in the fall. We are, however, expecting every faculty member to be prepared and willing to move into an online situation if we have to do it, as we did at the end of the spring semester, because we really can't know the trajectory of the pandemic. The best medical science tells us that it's not just going to go away forever when it abates, that it's going to keep coming back probably over and over again. And there may be, we may get to start on time and we may have to finish remotely. Hopefully we'll get to have the whole semester face-to-face, but we need to be prepared for all of those contingencies. The provost and I and the chairs and others have, however, been talking about ways to do that in a more socially distanced way, and most of our classes will be some version of hybrid classes to minimize the number of students who are in class physically with a faculty member at any given time. And if you want to ask him about it, the provost can discuss that with you in more detail in just a little while. When we do come back, we will have let you know in advance all of the protocols for safety and social distancing. They'll have been provided to everyone. We're doing our best to get all of the personal protective equipment that's needed so that if the university requires you to utilize it, the university will be bearing the expense for you having it as well. So we're doing our best to gather all of the supplies that we will need in that regard. I will tell you that we will try to balance people's rights to make decisions about their own physical being, such as whether they want to wear a mask or whether they don't, with the overwhelming public health concern, but we will err at all times on the side of the overwhelming public health concern. As the governor of one of the Dakotas, I forget which one, I know there are two, said the other day, I hope that we will be a people who don't politicize this process. And I hope that we will be a people who don't make conclusions about others based upon whether or not they want to wear a mask, like what political party we support or what social agenda we might support. I hope that we will be a people who realize that somebody might choose to wear a mask because they have an aged parent at home that they don't want to infect, or lots of other good reasons, or someone might not want to because their race has been socially discriminated against about the use of masks at some point in time. So we're going to be as understanding as we can, but we are going to enforce the rules that we make. And I want everybody to know that in advance, because my most solemn responsibility is keeping everybody safe. And I'm going to do the best that I can in that regard. Now I want to talk a little bit, and this is my last major topic area, about the overall financial health of the university. Then if you have any more specific questions about that, Alice or others can answer them in a moment. I want you to know that the physical health of West Virginia University at Parkersburg is very strong. Right now, I would rather be studying at or employed by West Virginia University at Parkersburg than any other institution of higher learning in the state of West Virginia, and many across the country, if I were looking at it from strictly financial reasons. We're in good shape financially. We have about $14 million in reserve funds, and I'm pleased to say that next month we will be presenting a balanced budget to the Board of Governors for the upcoming fiscal year. I will be honest with you, as I always am, and tell you it wasn't as easy to get it balanced as it was the first budget that Alice and I worked on together when I was here. There have been a lot of demands financially placed on the university by the pandemic, and we don't know what enrollment is going to be, though trends look as if it's going to be good. So we have to be much more fiscally cautious than we have been before, but fiscally cautious does not mean that the university is suffering from a deficit or that the university has any immediate financial concerns, because it does not. I want you to hear me say that we do not anticipate the losses or reductions of jobs of any current employees based purely on physical constraints caused by the pandemic. That's not going to be the case everywhere. I read an update from the Higher Learning Commission today about 2 colleges that are closing, not in West Virginia. I've not heard that about any in West Virginia yet, but we're already hearing stories about layoffs and other things at some institutions of higher learning in West Virginia. We're not going to be on that list. I want, however, for you also to hear me say that I never say never. You know, if enrollment came in at 50% in the fall and again at the spring of what we thought that it was going to be, and we're a fully almost not fully, but largely tuition-driven institution, I can't say to you there's no circumstance under which we would have to entertain a cut of some kind. I can just tell you that this budget was not constructed with any cuts in mind, that there aren't conversations ongoing or anticipated about anybody losing a job or having a job reduced because of the financial situation of the college. The financial situation of the college is good. I also want to tell you that we are not currently in, nor do we anticipate, a hiring freeze. We are, however, more closely evaluating positions that become vacant and new positions to see if they really are essential for us to fill at this time. We'll fill the ones that we judge are essential at this moment, and we may wait until fall or spring to fill some of the others when we have a better not only sense, but a better finite picture of what enrollment is going to be. We're also being told right now that we shouldn't anticipate any cuts from the state, which provides a lot of our funding as well. However, we know that West Virginia does have a huge budget deficit right now, so we have to be prepared for any contingency that might come in that regard. That just means that we're going to hire positions more carefully in the short term until we have a better sense of what our finances are going to be, but we will hire the positions that need to be hired. Faculty lines are not going to be permanently lost because of this. We are just working with chairs to determine if any of the ones that were unfilled by retirement or other reasons might stay unfilled for a little while until we have a better sense of enrollment and state funding. Also, the same will be true for adjuncts that we hire in the fall and spring. That will be determined based on enrollment. You might have heard that we have suspended our program in legal studies. It is the only academic program that we have suspended and the only one that we're considering suspending at this time. I want you to know that was not a financial decision brought on by the fact that we had to do it because of money that we lost because of the pandemic or the finances of the college. It was because that one program has consistently been losing enrollment over a period of time. And based on the recommendation of the provost, I decided that we would suspend that program for this year. It does not mean that we might not pick it up again sometime. And for the students who are enrolled in that program, the advisors in that department are working to get them scheduled in the most similar programs that we have. But I wanted you to know that that wasn't a harbinger of things to come and that you should not read that in any way other than it is, that it was a strategic academic decision, not a financial decision. There won't be across-the-board raises in this year. That probably won't surprise you. There are not across-the-board raises in the budget. It seemed that being able to hold on to all the programs and people that we have is more important for the university as a whole, although I know that individual raises are a very important thing and that they're deserved by all of you. Funds are in the budget to complete the staff MRSA raises that have been in the works for a long time, and that'll be coming as quickly as that can possibly be implemented, realizing that it naturally may have slowed a little bit because human resources hasn't been able to work on campus, though they have been working remotely. I will commit this much to you, however. I will commit as the new strategic enrollment plan begins to take effect and enrollment continues to stabilize and begins to go up as we plan for it to do, and I believe it absolutely will do. I will allocate a generous portion of the money that is generated by the strategic enrollment plan, and I will even ask, if I need to, the Board of Governors to match that with some money from reserves for us to be able to work on the merit and equity raises for faculty and possibly for staff as well that we've been talking about for a long time. That's not going away in the absence of an across-the-board raise this year, and I believe it will in fact be enabled in the long term by what we hope to accomplish with the strategic recruitment plan. I want to say to you that the Faculty Senate has called to my attention that we are currently below our 20% statutory cap on tenure. That isn't just a practice at the college. It is actually in West Virginia statute. And unless and until I'm able to get that statute amended, about which I am actually having some early conversations, we won't be able to go over 20%, but we are working this summer and will work in the fall to use the remaining percentage that we have to get to our 20% cap so that we will be able to tenure some faculty members, the first I understand that we've been able to do in a long time. I believe that tenure is one of the several things that belongs to the body of a faculty. So I will also promise you that the administration won't be making arbitrary decisions about how that will happen. That will happen in consultation with the faculty. I want to tell you that right this minute, I'm very glad that we're not a residential institution, because the residential institutions are the ones that are being hit the most hard financially. So I'm glad that we're a commuter school. But I have not forgotten my promise that we're going to do a feasibility study about campus-based housing. And Vice President Whipke and I have actually been working with Johnson Controls International, the largest company that does this sort of thing. And they're going to do, at no cost, a feasibility study for us about the prospect of campus-based housing, and that feasibility study will begin this summer. And that's a conversation that I think is really important for the achievement of our strategic recruitment plan that we've been talking a whole lot about lately. Having said that, I know that's a lot of information to share, but I figured that was a lot of the questions that you might have that I would go ahead and give you the answers to. Now, the vice presidents and I would like to hear from you thoughts and suggestions that you have about the long-term future of the college and the short-term reopening of the college. And any one of us will be happy to answer any questions that you have. Dr. Jackson is going to moderate this portion, and she will let us know your questions. If you want to direct them to anyone in particular, do. If not, we'll decide who answers them. And Tori, we will begin with any questions or comments that you have at this point.
Okay, Ty Crone is a student for the campus, and he first said that this is a reason why us students appreciate Chris as president. He is always friendly and transparent. He later added a few questions. He would like to know how some extracurricular activities like karaoke could be affected by social distancing. And he's also curious to know how clubs will be allowed to meet.
Well, you know what? If a president can't be friendly and transparent, she or he or they need to find something else to do. That's the least expectation that you ought to have of me. But thank you for that. I believe karaoke could be carried out remotely, and I could be persuaded to bring it back most any time. But I'm sure that there are deeper concerns about student activities and things of that nature. And I believe that that would be a good question for Dr. Crumbaker to field.
We're working on a full slate of activities and clubs and all of those things for fall. Obviously, at this point, with the plan to open and be on campus in a face-to-face environment in the fall, our initial plans will be to do the same with activities and engagement, which also leads us into a conversation about retention. And we're working on a big retention model about how we can better support students. And our Ascend program, which is part of that retention model and part of our retention efforts, will all be in part of that. And we'll work on that assuming we're coming back to campus in the fall. But after that, we have contingencies, and we will work on continuously engaging and finding ways to be having club activities and other fun things that we can do to engage the student body.
It's important to feel like you belong, and being able to do those kinds of things give us all a sense of belonging.
Okay, another question comes from one of our faculty members, Uda Hempel, and she's curious about, will the testing center open again soon, and is there any testing that can be done through virtual proctoring?
I'm gonna let you have that one, Chad.
Well, we're working on different remote proctoring capabilities right now. So far, the testing center's come up with protocols to do remote AccuPlacer testing. As you can remember, we typically don't require testing. We don't require testing of any new student, but you can opt into testing in order to place into math and English without code requisites and things like that. But at this point, the only remote proctoring we have is the AccuPlacer testing. Other than that, we will anticipate opening the testing center probably sometime late summer, but at the point when we determine that it's safe for us to return to campus and do proctoring or to do testing and proctor testing and tutoring center activities in that way. Currently, we're doing all remote tutoring, and it's available. You have one-on-one sessions with student tutors, peer tutors, and folks in this tutoring center. So all that's still available in addition to the virtual tutoring BrainFuse that you can use.
Okay, we don't currently have any more questions at the moment, but you can leave those on YouTube or you can leave them on our Facebook Live page. I would like to say there are several comments about appreciating cautious leadership and the approach to the reopen.
There don't just have to be questions either. Comments are equally welcome. But before you leave, I'm going to tell you one more thing. I was saving it. I'll go ahead while you decide if you have any more questions or comments. And this may make some of the love for me erode. I hope not. But at least, you know, I looked you in the face and told you the truth about it. I was one of the first presidents to realize that we weren't going to be able to do a May commencement, that it just wasn't going to be safe, and we postponed that May commencement to August. I will go ahead and tell you now, and it pains no one probably more than it does me, that we're not going to be able to have a face-to-face commencement ceremony in August. Even though I believe we will be back physically together, there is no way, in my judgment, that it is socially and medically responsible to bring 500 people together in a room in August when I don't believe the pandemic will have left, though I hope it will have abated. But I want to make you a couple of promises if you're students, and those of you who talk to students, I want you to share this with them as well. The next time that we have a face-to-face commencement at WVU Parkersburg, the May graduates who want to return for that will be specially honored as special participants because of what you lost. Also, I want you to know that on Sunday, June the 7th, at 11:30 a.m., we have bought an hour of live television time on WTAP, which is the local television station that serves the most of our service area. It does not serve our whole service area. So also at that time, what we're going to do will be done live on Facebook, and I think probably YouTube as well, so that the most people possible can watch it. We're going to have a downright celebration of our May 2020 graduates. We're working on it really hard, and you're going to feel very celebrated, and your family will be able to watch it with you, and each person will be personally recognized by name. We'll have some very interesting drop-in guests who are going to be dropping in to congratulate you on this singular accomplishment. So more will be coming out starting very soon to the whole community. But when I had to take away your face-to-face commencement, I began to ask myself, what's something I could give you that nobody at WVU Parkersburg has ever had before? Nobody here before has ever had a televised real-time celebration of their graduation. So more information will be coming out from Dr. Jackson and her team about that in the coming days. And we won't forget you when we have the next face-to-face commencement ceremony. In fact, you will be our very honored guests. Have any other questions or anything come in, Tori?
They have. And actually, Brianna Morgan Hoffman was a student who had just asked about commencement. She came on late and she was concerned for the 2020 grads who want to participate. So you just answered that question. Instructor or Professor Kathy Fromm would like to know if the CSS, the PAC, the tutoring center, and the business office could open first.
Mhm. We're evaluating right this minute the protocols for reopening, and as I said, we will announce them a week or two before the reopening takes place. I will tell you that we are going to, as I said earlier, begin to allow a few people back on campus as soon as next week for functions that have to be done during summer school and to get ready for fall. But we're going to be doing that judiciously, and those are some of the services and some of the people that we're considering getting back on campus face to face as quickly as we can.
All right, there's also a comment that says the library is currently open. If someone could address that.
I'm going to let the provost address that.
They're open for services in a remote environment, so you can continue to check out books, I believe, return books and things like that. So continue to contact them. Additionally, there are off-campus resources that are available to all students that with their normal WVU Parkersburg login credentials that you use for your email and other accessible activities. So the research things are, a lot of those opportunities are available. The reference desk is still available to you for assistance as well.
Okay, we also have a question about ProctorU from Dana Lee. Could we invest in that with some of the money that came in from the stimulus? And Kathy Frum added, yes, ProctorU is needed.
So I'm going to let the provost address the issue of ProctorU, and the EVP for finance address the can we get it.
So at this point, we're exploring opportunities for proctored exams, remote proctoring, and all of those things. We want to make sure that it's the best product that we have to integrate with our current systems, and so there's exploration about that across the board. We've been working on that through our Blackboard providers and different places so far.
Alice, do you want to say anything about the possibility of paying for that with stimulus money?
Yeah, I actually believe that is something that we could use stimulus money to pay for, because it relates to providing a better online environment for students. I'm with Dr. Crumbaker that we need to make sure that ProctorU is the best product. I have some friends that are taking online classes, and ProctorU is their proctor, and I see a lot of Facebook posts about their dissatisfaction.
So it sounds like we can buy it with stimulus funds, and we are very willing to get you whatever tools you need. We just want everybody to come to agreement about the fact that that's the best tool available.
All right, the next question, thanks for everything that you are doing, is from Alicia Kathleen. I heard Dr. Gilmer mention that most courses will likely be meeting in some hybrid fashion. Will faculty receive specific information about the setup for our particular classes in the fall, or we should assume that all of our classes will follow the hybrid model as we build our syllabi?
That's for you, Dr. Crumbaker.
Sure. So we're still discussing the particulars between all the chairs, and so you'll have a lot of opportunity as faculty to participate in that conversation about what it is that you need to do to have students be successful in your courses. I want to say one of the biggest components in this particular time is using technology to aid and enable our instruction. And so when we look at that, the other piece that we need to look at is measuring our student learning outcomes and really focusing on how do we meet student learning outcomes more than we worry specifically about how much time are they in a seat and how much time they spend online and those kinds of things. So all those are on the table when we're discussing how those would work, and we want to make sure that we're providing a safe environment for students to learn, and also that they're successful when they're learning and they meet their learning outcomes.
Thank you.
A follow-up to that question, possibly, Provost, is from Holly Martin. It says, if we are on campus, how will we social distance in our classes that are already full right now, such as lab courses?
Great question. It's going to take some delicate scheduling and some spacing and use of things like labs and larger classrooms for certain size classes, and perhaps using some alternative ways of delivering for students that come in person. So we'll have to look at those opportunities. We've talked about locations on campus that provide the opportunity to spread out more, that have different entrance and exit doors and things like that. So we will be putting everything on the table in order to keep students safe. And so there's a lot that could come there. It's going to involve scheduling. We're actually got some additional software support or a program support from the state that has to do with scheduling and how we can help look at our schedule and the timing of when classes enter and exit, things like that, in order to maximize our ability to provide students classes that they need.
Okay, we have a comment from Jennifer Conrad Miller. This says Zoom tutoring and brain-fused tutoring are going great, as Chad said. We are thankful that President Gilmer is taking the necessary precautions. We have a question from Angie Davis. Can we safely assume that the Child Care Center will not open during the summer and will open in August for fall semester? We have several parents asking.
I'm sure you do, Angie, and that's a great question. It's one that I'm not really going to be able to fully answer for you today. You and I have had a lot of conversations in the past, so I think you know that there's no more audience that I consider more really of a sacred responsibility for me to try to take care of than the children, the smallest people on our campuses. And so while I'm wanting to take care of all of us, I'm giving a heightened degree of thought to the Early Learning Center. And I hope that I will be able to answer that question in the near future, but I will make sure that it is answered well in advance of when it has to be. But it's definitely something that is on my mind, something that we're considering all the aspects of, and that we'll be in touch with the most affected parties about soon, so that you'll be able to give the proper answer to the parents who are rightly asking those questions.
Okay, Kelly Straley also had a question about the reopening of the Early Learning Center as workplaces are beginning to reopen. Shauna Carpenter, will there be safety barriers or measures in place for frontline staff members for their desks or in labs and computer labs, possibly plexiglass barriers or anything like that?
It's a good question. Brady, do you want to take a pass at that, or do you want me to?
It doesn't matter to me, Dr. Gilmer.
Go ahead if you have anything to add about the physical plant safety.
As far as we have started putting, or they haven't been put in yet, but we've started ordering the plexiglass barriers to set on the desk. We're not certain of every person that could report up to your supervisor, and your supervisor report up to the sure that we have somebody for maintenance coming to your areas and measure your desk to make sure that the right size and type of barrier is ordered and installed. As far as the computer labs and other labs go, it would be hard to put the plexiglass barriers around every piece of equipment. While we haven't discussed it fully yet, I assume that we would go ahead like we did before we went completely online, which was having every other station shut down to where each room could only hold so many people, and they were still within the 6 feet apart. And then once that room is filled up, we would open up the next computer lab, so on and so forth. And then as people come out, we have that area sanitized.
Yeah, it's a huge undertaking to retrofit existing facilities for social distancing, but it is something that we are looking into, and that we will be taking all of the steps and precautions that we can find to take. Vice President Whipke is right in saying that part of that will be solved by the fact that computer labs and things of that nature won't be opened up at full capacity, even after they're opened up for a long time. So again, as I said, we're not just here to answer your questions, but we would really like to hear from you either today, or if you want to put it in writing to some of us, things that we could do to make you feel safer, things that we could do to make you feel better about physically returning to your workstation. So if you want to share any thoughts with me or with any of the vice presidents about what we could do to make you feel physically safer when we return, we would be very happy to receive that.
Okay, we also had a message from Kenna Warren interested in hearing specific plans to protect employees with a public-facing role and that have a need to interact with the general public as part of their duties. Elizabeth Nick noted that she'd already talked to Jared Gump about plexiglass because she worries about giving something to her father. A student, Sarah Almashi, I might have said that incorrectly, so forgive me. For those that had work study positions and haven't been working since the pandemic happened, when will they be able to resume work at the college?
Alice, can you answer that?
I think the plan is that once we are back on campus in some shape, form, or fashion, that we'll start allowing work studies to resume their employment, as well as some student workers.
We're sensitive to the fact that this is money out of the pockets of our students. And I've been a college student before who relied on very little to try to do very much. So I understand the fiscal challenges that you all face. And I assure you that we will get you back to earning as quickly as we possibly can.
And the next two questions are a little bit related. One is from Willie O. He's a student wanting to know when the welding shop will reopen. And then Brandy Edgar has a question wondering how classes with field experience hours, such as education classes, will go forward in the fall if there are closures for elementary schools.
I think those are for you, Chad.
Yeah, great question about welding. We're working on the protocols for the summer right now, and some of the things have to do with some of the safety protection and the equipment that we will need in order to reopen. I anticipate that being sometime in the next few weeks, 3 weeks. So that's where we are there. We're going to provide everything we can to have you be successful in the summer, complete anything you needed to complete in the spring, and finish up your summer courses as well. What was the second question? Field experiences and education and things like that. Well, elementary education is a little bit more complicated because it doesn't just involve field experience for us. It involves it at the public schools. And the public schools, they're going to have to give us some guidelines about what they're going to do in terms of allowing student teachers and other observations and things like that to occur. As it relates to the health sciences, we're working closely with the hospitals and the places that those field experiences would occur in order to continue to provide those opportunities in the healthcare setting. So we're going to be working through all those, coming up with ways to keep everybody safe and be able to complete their education and do the things that we have set to be the requirements to be successful in your field. And we'll continue to focus on that and make sure you're meeting your outcomes and being successful.
Okay, we also had a thank you to Dr. Gilmer and the administration for taking into consideration all who have family members with a compromised immune system and who are elderly. That is from Shauna Carpenter. We also have an alumni who had posted a question saying that he's having a little bit of difficulty finding work and if there's going to be any more help right now for alumni.
Not sure who the best person to answer that question is, so I'll take a pass at it. Well, that's your area, Tori. Would you like to answer that?
Well, I could say that we always do our best to try and help alumni, and our alumni coordinator director, she's always willing to assist alumni with connections to people in the public, look over their resumes, which we can also do through career services and help people with that way. So always just reach out to Nancy Harris, and she's happy to help any alumni who need a little bit more assistance.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing to do. Let Nancy be your broker for any service that you might need. And what I can tell you that we would be willing to do for alumni, especially during this time, is whatever services the college has that are available to our students and available to our employees, we would try to make as many of those available to alumni who need a little bit of extra help for whatever reason during this time. So that's a very good question, and one of few that I wasn't thinking on my feet enough to anticipate. So thank you for that question. We take our role as a member of the community very, very seriously. And again, I would invite alumni to reach out to us and tell us how we can do that better. And then we'll endeavor to live up to it.
Okay, another question from Dana Lee. Have there been any talks about altering the fall semester schedule, such as starting earlier or finishing by Thanksgiving, like some other schools have announced that they are doing?
There have been lots of talks, and I'll ask Chad to tell you what we've decided.
Yeah, so at this point, we've decided not to change the overarching fall schedule, to leave it as has previously been scheduled. However, within that, we're looking at how those things that will require a true face-to-face component to be on campus, how to alter that a bit so that we make sure we can accomplish as much as possible of it during any given timeline that we would have, and including maybe we would not be on campus all the way through after Thanksgiving, things like that. But those things will be on, we're making those available, but the overall calendar will stay the same. The reason for that is to create the consistency and look within the individual courses and what we need to do to be able to accomplish what we need within those. Again, focusing on technology-enabled instruction and the concepts of what it is that we expect students to learn and how do we accomplish that at the highest level and be able to measure that we're doing a good job at it.
Any further questions, Tori?
I was doing another check. I'm trying to monitor 2 places here. We have a lot of positive comments, a lot of people saying that they miss their WVU Parkersburg family, that they are WVU.
I do too.
And I believe at the moment, those are the questions that we currently have.
How many, just curious, how many people have we had join us today, Tori? Are you even able to tell that?
Yes, we had 115 that were at least at one time on Facebook and 30 on YouTube. So both outlets were being utilized.
Okay, folks, that tells me there's a whole lot of people who are interested in our shared future. And that makes me feel really, really good. As we get ready to wrap this up, is there anything that we did not cover that any of the vice presidents would like to add today?
President Gilmer?
Yes, Alice. You're on mute, Alice.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I would like to remind any students that are listening out there right now, if you haven't completed your FAFSA, please do so immediately so that we have plenty of time to get your financial aid process before you come in for your fall classes. It puts you in a lot better position if all of that's taken care of and you don't have the stress of worrying about whether or not it's going to get processed on time.
Good counsel. You're on mute, Steve.
Now. I thought it was automatic. Well, and from a recruitment and enrollment perspective, we are looking forward to you guys coming not only for the summer, but for the fall semester. And know that you still have time to apply and to enroll. So we're looking forward to it. We want to welcome you to as you look at into becoming part of the WVUP family.
Indeed.
We also have a comment actually from Michelle Wilson, who is helping remind us that we do have Career Coach, and it is a service not only to our students, but also to our alumni who are trying to connect with a job. And that is on wvup.edu. You can find Career Coach.
Thank you, Michelle. You know, I was WVU proud from the moment that I got here. When I came to interview here, I went home and I said to David, I don't know for sure whether they want me, but I know for sure that I want them. That was how I felt, and it hasn't changed. And I want to thank you very much for that. I've never been more WVU Parkersburg proud than I am in this moment. And I think we're going to add to that WVU strong as well, because we're going to come out of this in a good place. And together we're going to make the brightest future that we can possibly make for our students, for our colleagues, and for our community. So thank you all very much for joining us today. This will be the first of ongoing conversations, and I'm happy to meet with you virtually. My virtual door is just as always open as my physical one was when I was on campus. So reach out if you want to talk to me privately. Send us notes with your thoughts and ideas, and we will take them very seriously as we work together to get our facilities reopened in the short term, to get a very big class of new and returning students for the fall, and as we move forward to get to the other side of this pandemic together. So thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.
All righty.